the mic.
Get on the mic.
Just get on the mic. Get on the mic, Mike.
Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to Get on the Mic. That's where you put me in front of a microphone with a few notes and I talk about some of the more interesting things that have happened in the world of entertainment throughout the week or whatever else I feel like talking about that's happened. Before I get started with this jam-packed program, I want to remind you guys of my partnership with the DNA Digital Network. Now, not only will you be able to find this podcast on YouTube, but now you'll be able to find it on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and other places that podcasts are available. Now you can listen to this program on your favorite audio device. For more details, check out dnadigitalnetwork.com. Today on the program, I got a lot to talk about, and a lot of this stuff came to me late. I didn't have a big program planned, and I was going to do a bigger segment, and then a bunch of little stories popped up that I wanted to talk about. So, first of all, here we go. The first story is going to be a Toys R Us update and a returning contender to the toy store market. Next, we're going to be talking a little wrestling. We're going to be talking about the WWE, a couple stories there. The first thing, we have to talk about the return of Daniel Bryan. Those of you that are wrestling fans know exactly who that is. And then also, we're going to talk about Ronda Rousey again on this program. And I guess I can justify talking about wrestling on this program because, and even though I hate these words, I guess it is now sports entertainment. The next story we're going to talk about is Frank Oz's take on Disney owning the Muppets. And then the last story, since I had a lot of fun last week talking about one of my experiences dealing with famous people and famous situations, I'm going to be doing another story time with Geno this week. I'm going to be talking about my first Comic-Con, which was Wizard World Chicago. So the first thing I want to talk about is Toys R Us. There's an update on the Toys R Us story about them closing, and also there's a returning contender to the toy store market. When it comes to Toys R Us, there's still no new news on the possibility of location buyouts. Liquidation sales will begin today, which I'm recording this program on March 22nd. You can expect discounts to start on the low end, around 20% to 30%, but eventually, hopefully, they should climb to about 75% to 80%. But there's no real surprise there. Anytime you go to a liquidation sale, like whenever, say, Kmart closed or things like that, it always started low, and then eventually, by the time it was getting to the bare bones of the store, that's when things were really cheap. The liquidation is expected to last about 14 weeks, with sales running through June, but some stores may close early if the product is pretty much gone. When it comes to gift cards, they're going to honor all Toys R Us and Babies R Us gift cards for 30 days. The last day to use your gift cards will be April 19th. And of course, with any liquidation sale, all sales will be final. So that's all the new news when it comes to Toys R Us. Now, there is a twist on this story. A quote-unquote old friend is rising out of the ashes like a phoenix to fill the void of Toys R Us leaving. I can't believe that I'm saying this. I can't believe that I'm even saying this sentence, but get this. KB Toys is making its return after being gone since 2008. Strategic Marks, a company that buys and revitalizes defunct brands, owns the KB name and plans to open up 1,000 pop-up KB stores for Black Friday and the holiday shopping season. Strategic Marks president, and I'll probably butcher this guy's name, Ilya Kassoff, had this to say to CNN Money. He said, "My assumption is that there is about $500 million worth of toys that have been produced for Toys R Us with no place to go. That's a big, big void that we're hoping to fill up." Kassoff said that he's been in contact with Hasbro, Mattel, and up to 200 smaller toy suppliers who are looking for new brick-and-mortar retailers. He said he plans to take advantage of the glut of toy manufacturers that have inventory but no place to sell it. Working with companies that specialize in holiday and pop-up retail, he had this to say, "We're talking to companies that know how to do it. They have a methodology. We're used to rolling out stuff real quickly." They're going to decide after the holiday season if the stores will remain permanent. I imagine it's basically this. If the stores do well, they stay. I think they're seeing if this idea works. And if the idea works, well, then, they'll keep them around. But I'm willing to bet if they do poorly, they won't come back. If they do okay, they'll come back seasonally. And if they do fantastic, they'll do year-round. That's just the way I see it. And honestly, I think this is a pretty great idea. Like I said, Toys R Us is basically rising from the ashes of Toys R Us, burning down. It's almost like they were waiting for this to happen. Because, they popped up pretty quick after Toys R Us announced that they were leaving. All of a sudden, KB's like, but by the way, I think that the strategic Marks company was watching closely, and they figured, okay, we bought this up, now's the time. And who knows, maybe they may buy up the Toys R Us name. You never know. And that would give them, the two major, toy stores from my childhood anyway, to play with when it comes to name recognition, names that people recognize to, whenever you think toy store. When it comes to KB Toys, my memories of KB, we only ever had some in our malls growing up. In Decatur, Illinois, I can't remember if Bloomington had one because I didn't go to Bloomington a lot when I was younger. I know Springfield had one in their mall. And I always remember going in there and always got to look around. And it wasn't until I got a little older that I could really afford to buy stuff there. I remember like when toys were full price, they were kind of expensive. But when they were marked down, they were really marked down. I remember walking out of a lot of KB toy stores with a lot of, buy 3 for $10s and on like X-Men figures and things like that. I remember not buying a lot of video games there because I remember video games were never on sale whenever I went in there, and they were always expensive. And of course, growing up, video games were always expensive. There wasn't a lot of trade-in stores. Every now and then, whenever I got a little older, some of those stores would pop up. But when it comes to KB, I remember liking them fondly. I always remember it gave me somewhere to, if I had to go to the mall, hey, I want to go to KB Toys. Even when I got older, I like going in there and looking and buying stuff. So, I'm happy that this is happening because, as much as I don't want to see Toys R Us close, they're filling this void. And like I said, I think they were just planning this. Because they came out awful quick. So I like the idea of having that other option. Who knows what kind of prices they're going to have? Are they going to try the same markups like Toys R Us did? I have a feeling that they're going to be smart and mark down things to get the ball rolling. Hopefully that's the case, that maybe there'll be a cheaper option or as cheap of option as, say, something like Walmart. Or even, shopping on, Amazon or eBay. So I really like this idea of KB Toys. It's sad that it had to come at the expense of Toys R Us, but hey, my childhood wasn't completely destroyed, with KB Toys coming back. The next stories I'm going to talk about are both about the WWE, and once again, they're sports entertainment, so I guess I can talk about them. There's 2 stories I want to talk about. The first one is, of course, about Daniel Bryan returning. And I'm going to go through a brief history here. I'll go through it as quick as I can. But I wanted to kind of set the stage for those that don't know who Daniel Bryan is. Of course, if you're a wrestling fan, you definitely know who he is. But for those of you that aren't wrestling fans, this will give you just a little bit of history of who I'm talking about. After having to retire 2 years ago because of concussions, Daniel Bryan has finally been cleared by WWE doctors to resume competition in the ring. Of course, if you don't know who Daniel Bryan is, if you've ever been to a sporting event and you see a crowd chanting, yes, 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 with pointing 2 fingers in the air, well, that's Daniel Bryan who created that. Of course, there's a no, no, no too. But definitely the yes chant has become a cultural phenomenon, kind of like what has, if you've ever had someone talking to a crowd and people start saying what all together. That was a Stone Cold Steve Austin thing from wrestling. But the yes chant, I've seen it at sporting events and everything else ever since he started doing it. So yeah, if you don't know what Daniel Bryan is, you know what the Yes Chan is. His popularity pretty much forced the WWE to push him. He became the champion at WrestleMania 30 in 2014, despite the WWE saying that this was their plan all along. Many fans, myself included, didn't buy it. Their plan was to give the returning Dave Bautista, who many of you know as Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy movies, the title at the show of shows. But the very loud fan displeasure put a damper on those plans. WWE kept saying, oh, we planned this all along. Bullcrap. There is no way they were planning. They tried to, whenever he didn't show up in the Royal Rumble that year, and people booed a fan favorite like Rey Mysterio for the fact that he just wasn't Daniel Bryan. Well, that told you how over Daniel Bryan was. And, them not pushing him was just sad. But yeah, he's the ultimate underdog. And that's why people love him. One of the many reasons why people love him, myself included. Just 2 months after WrestleMania, Bryan was injured and wouldn't be able to come back until January of 2015. In a way, he was being used, after he came back, he was being used to push Roman Reigns, but most people were behind Bryan. People thought that Roman Reigns, who's just this, he's a built, good-looking Samoan guy that, they want to make the man, and those that are, smart fans kind of know that he's being forced, to be, the guy. And we as wrestling fans like our heroes and the guys we really like to kind of, organically become the guy. And it always felt like they were really pushing him too hard. But anyway, Daniel Bryan won the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania 31, which was supposed to help elevate the title's prestige, because for years it kind of became, whenever guys like Macho Man Randy Savage and Ricky Steamboat and even the Honky Tonk Man had that title, it kind of meant more. And for years it kind of dwindled in prestige, and they put the two minor titles on Daniel Bryan and John Cena just to kind of up those titles. And while Cena was able to up his title, something happened to Daniel Bryan. During a match in early April, Bryan hit his head on the announce table, and his forehead was split open, causing him to bleed, and later acquired stitches for the wound. On the April 16th episode of SmackDown, in his last in-ring match, Bryan teamed up with United States Champion John Cena to defeat the WWE Tag Team Champion Cesaro and Tyson Kidd. Next, WWE pulled Bryan from wrestling on the remainder of the WWE's touring of Europe as a precautionary measure. Bryan's scheduled title defense at Extreme Rules on April 26th against Bad News Barrett was later canceled as Bryan was medically unable to compete. He then eventually had to give up the Intercontinental title a short time later. Although he said he may have to retire because of his injuries, he vowed he would wrestle again. After months and months of tests, the WWE would not clear him to wrestle, even though many of the specialists that he went to see independently did. In February 2016, after much consideration, Daniel Bryan retired from in-ring competition. He stated that he suffered 10 documented concussions while wrestling over the years, but more might have been undocumented or misdiagnosed. Initially, Bryan requested his release from WWE and was looking to return to New Japan Pro Wrestling and Ring of Honor, but the request was turned down by the owner of the WWE, Vince McMahon. Bryan then underwent a new test where a lesion in his brain was discovered, after which he himself made the decision to retire. He decided to stay decided to stay on as an on-air personality as SmackDown Live commissioner. On March 20th, 2018, after more than 2 years of evaluations, reviews of his medical history, and neurological and physical evaluations, Bryan was now cleared by 3 external independent neurosurgeons, neurologists, and concussion experts, in addition to WWE doctor Joseph Maroon, to return to WWE in-ring competition. Now, as a fan of Daniel Bryan, I am both scared and excited for his return. While nothing is confirmed, Chances are he's probably going to be wrestling this year at WrestleMania 34 in April. What I want to talk about is a rumor and some conspiracies when it comes to Daniel Bryan. Like I said, these are not fact. These are not only my opinion. A lot of people think these, but I wanted to throw them out there anyway. First is a rumor about Daniel Bryan. There's a rumor that he's only being cleared now because of his contract. It was set to expire on September 1st of this year. Now, Bryan would mean big business on the independent circuit now. Just like any other big name that has left and started making independent money. WWE is the biggest game in town, but they're not the only game in town when it comes to making money now. With the rise of New Japan Pro Wrestling, Ring of Honor is doing quite well. TNA's doing okay, but it still is another place for people to work. And then plus just being on your own, getting money for independence, you can charge whatever you want and sell your merch. Basically Daniel Bryan equals money. So of course they're not going to release him or let him have his release. They were going to make him wait it out. Now, who knows, how long they've known he's going to be back wrestling, being that they just announced it the other day. But think about this. Oddly enough, with his contract set to expire September 1st, oddly enough, the New Japan Bullet Club's All-In show is scheduled for, you guessed it, September 1st of this year. There were rumblings of Daniel Bryan competing at that event against former WWE superstar Cody, the WWE won't allow me to use my daddy's character's last name, Rhodes. Coincidence? Honestly, you can't tell me that there isn't something behind that rumor. Now, it may not be that, they may have known he's going to come back to wrestle for a year. And he's just been saying, well, I can't, knowing that's going to be a big WrestleMania moment. Who knows? But on Twitter, Daniel Bryan and Cody Rhodes were kind of, beefing back and forth a little bit. And really, his contract, as far as we know, is still set to expire September 1st. Now, granted, the fact that he's coming back to the ring, probably chances are, he's back. And they probably extended his contract. But who knows? Maybe it's still in September 1st, and then he can go wrestle wherever he wants. Meaning he still may make a deal to do this show because Chris Jericho is under contract, or at least I think he was under contract with WWE, and he wrestled at a New Japan show. And so, I have a feeling that Daniel Bryan may do this match still, even though he is going to be with the WWE for WrestleMania and things like that, and for the foreseeable future. I have a feeling that they may have made a deal to let that happen. Now, when it comes to conspiracies, the big one is this. Bryan wasn't cleared for the last couple years because the WWE knew that Roman Reigns would never have a chance to get over while Bryan was around. Do I really feel that's the case? No. Now, I might think more so of this conspiracy if it wasn't for Chris Benoit. Most of you know who Chris Benoit is. He's the wrestler that suffered from a lot of concussions, and years ago he killed his wife and kid, and then committed suicide, and he's all but been erased from WWE. I mean, you can still find his matches and stuff on the network, but whenever it comes to, them even showing clips or anything of him and anything new, they cut him out of everything. They don't mention his name. There's a lot behind that because, he dealt with a lot of concussions, and like Daniel Bryan, he did like a lot of flying headbutts and things like that off the top rope, which basically your head's smacking into the ground, or chances are it may smack into the other guy. I mean, I know wrestlers try to be as safe as possible and protect each other, but there's some moves that just can't be protected. It's just the same as someone getting a chair smacked against their head unprotected, like Mick Foley did for years. I mean, he talks about how his head's messed up at times. I think they were afraid that another Benoit situation might happen. Of course, there's I don't know if they're rumors or facts now, because I don't really look into that because that whole story depresses me. But There's either rumors or facts that Benoit was also on steroids, which could have played. I mean, the way his body was cut, it's pretty, I'm pretty sure he probably was. Then again, I'm not a doctor and I didn't know him personally. But Daniel Bryan, on the other hand, he's a very natural person. He eats real clean. He takes care of his body. So I don't think there's any steroids at play. But then again, enough hits to the head and things could go wrong with your brain. So do I feel that they were really holding him back for that? No. I think if they really were expecting, or if they really wanted him back, because that's just it, Daniel Bryan's money. And they could have a whole thing with him and Reigns getting each other over in the ring, right? So I don't think they would have held him back for that. But a lot of people think that they really just held him back because they knew that Reigns would never get over. I don't believe it. But I also believe, though, I don't know what made WWE change their mind about him being able to come back. I don't know if they could see his brain is healed. I don't know anything about the brain, so it almost feels a little convenient he's able to come back now, because I mean, the night he announced he come back, he got to do a little in-ring stuff. He didn't have a match, but he got to quote unquote fight with Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. So he got physical, and he hadn't got to do that for a couple years at least. The 2 years he's been retired, plus the time before he didn't know if he's coming back, which is almost 3 years. That being said, I'm happy he's at least getting a chance to compete again. I just hope that he's safe, and he supposedly has a new in-ring style where he's not doing certain moves. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he does in the ring. Only time will tell if it's the right decision. Now, if that's not enough wrestling for you, there's a second wrestling story I want to talk about. And I want to talk about Ronda Rousey. I know we talked about Ronda Rousey a while back, and I talked about how I want her to do well. But after the last few weeks, I have a really bad feeling that she's not going to end up doing very well. Now, like I said, I want to be wrong, but just hear me out. I think she needs a lot more time training in all aspects of pro wrestling, because she is extremely green in both the athletic side and the acting side. For example, last Monday, on an untelevised segment, Ronda Rousey came out to address the Raw crowd in Dallas, Texas. After saying a few things, she was approached in-ring by women's wrestler Dana Brooke. Long story short, Brooke said some things to Rousey she didn't like. They had a few words together. Brooke attacked Rousey, who blocked a quote-unquote punch, big air quotes there, and then performed an awkward-looking suplex on Brooke. The segment was supposed to make Rousey look strong going into WrestleMania, because she has that mixed tag. She has a mixed tag match with. She's tagging with Olympic hero Kurt Angle, who's making his WrestleMania return. He's returned for a couple matches since coming back and being the GM. And they're gonna wrestle a mixed tag match with Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. But for me, all it did was point out that she's not ready for the big time. First, I still don't think she can separate the fangirl from the performer. She comes out smiling a little too much, right? And then she comes out all smiley and almost fangirling out. And then all of a sudden she switches to mean face, and it's pretty ridiculous. If she's gonna play a character, she needs to play the character. And a perfect example is when Ken Shamrock was a pro wrestler. I mean, he didn't turn it off. Let's just put it that way. He was Mr. Intensity, and he always was that way. and then you'd see him do an interview or something outside of the show, and then you got to see the real Ken Shamrock, right? She needs to play the character, right? Because she just seems like a fan in that ring right now, and I'm not buying it. Also, I've seen her do a few different moves now, and all of them look like, and I hate saying this, and I don't want this to be the case, but all of them look like she may end up hurting somebody. And I don't want to see that happen. I've seen her do a pretty bad Samoan drop, which she got criticized by other wrestlers about how she had things set up wrong. The suplex she hit Dana Brooke with. Dana Brooke made it look good, but it still looks sloppy on Rousey's part. And the punch, one thing, I believe Jim Cornette, the legendary wrestling manager, said on his podcast one time that you got to teach him how to punch. The punches have to look real. Well, this punch that she blocked, I mean, it looked like bad choreography from a Z-rated movie, right? You can't be that way. Look, and I know the WWE wants to make money, but first, the safety of the other performers is key. The other performers have to be safe, and also the quality of the product should come first. And I know that Ronda Rousey is not the first sports celebrity, or celebrity for that matter, to enter the ring unprepared, but Rousey wants to be a full-time performer, okay? It's different than, say, when Lawrence Taylor wrestled at WrestleMania, or when, God forbid, when Snooki wrestled. You know what I mean? This is different. I know she's an athlete, but she wants to be like Ken Shamrock, where she's a full-time performer. So, I hope the WWE knows what they're doing. Honestly, I think she needs to go. She should have went to NXT, which technically is the WWE's it's their training ground for wrestlers. They train at the Performance Center in Florida, and I know she's training at the Performance Center, don't get me wrong, but I think she needed to be able to hone her entire craft at NXT. She should have trained for at least another year before doing a WrestleMania, but she should have maybe done some NXT TV to get the acting part down, just to see if she could do it, because they're throwing her into the spotlight, and I know she's Ronda freaking Rousey, but I mean, even her persona in MMA, yeah, when she got in the cage, I believe she was going to kill somebody, right? That look on her face was there the entire time. There wasn't any smiling in the cage. It was business in the cage. It was competition in the cage, right? But even at stare downs at the weigh-in, she went mean face and then would go smiles, mean face, smiles, and it was like a bad wrestling performance. So she needed more time. I mean, any movie I've seen her in, except for when she played herself in the Entourage movie, I know we talked about this before. When she played herself, she was fine, but anytime she tried playing a character, she needed work. I'm trying to be nice because I think she has potential, but and I know she probably doesn't feel like she's coasting, but she's gonna be in the ring with Stephanie McMahon, who, yes, she was a former women's champion, in the 90s and stuff, but, she's not like the top competition. You get her in a ring with someone that's really good, and the flaws are definitely going to come out. So yeah, I just think that she needed to train more before they thrust her into the spotlight. I think she should have started in the NXT, which NXT right now is still really big. So she would get exposure, and get more training, and then bring her up, right? So, look, I hope they know what they're doing. I'm still rooting for Rousey to do well, but unfortunately my confidence is dwindling by the day. The next story I want to talk about is Frank Oz's take on Disney owning the Muppets. Look, Frank Oz has come out and said he isn't too happy with how Disney has been treating the Muppet franchise. He believes that despite Disney's best intentions, it doesn't understand how to properly use Jim Henson's creation. He said in an interview with THR, quote, "As much as Disney loves the Muppets and wants the best for the Muppets, and they truly believe they can do it, they don't get it. They don't get the true rebellion and true affection underneath those characters." He does believe that there's still some of that Jim Henson spirit still left on the property, and his advice to Disney is this, quote, "By the way, I don't mean to knock Disney. They really want to do a good job, but they've never asked me, and they have not asked the performers how to do it. If they just did that, the performers are so brilliant. Instead of an outside person, let the performers lead. Then it would be a whole different deal. The audience would appreciate the purity of that." And I know that he's not totally mad at Disney because he doesn't have a problem working with them, being that, and I know it's out on video, so I don't even want to throw a spoiler warning out there because I'm sure those that are going to see it have seen it already. But Yoda returned in The Last Jedi, and it was Frank Oz doing the puppet and everything, or at least the voice. I'm not sure if he did the puppet part or not. I never really looked into it. I know he did the voice though. So he doesn't have a problem working with Disney, but I think he just wants what's best for something he's worked on for so long. Disney is planning a new Muppet show for their upcoming streaming service. But here's the thing. After Disney bought the Muppets in 2004, they have only produced 3 movies. The made-for-TV movie, The Muppets Wizard of Oz. In 2011, The Muppets, and then Muppets Most Wanted a couple years later. Only one of those movies, in my opinion, were really any good. That would be the 2011 movie, which had the love of actor Jason Segel in front of the camera and writing the script. The passion was there. They also tried to bring the Muppets back to television to mixed results and reviews, and it was canceled after 1 season. I never got to watch that show. I did not hear good things about it. I will say this. I just watched a documentary from Frank Oz called Muppet Guys Talking. And I'll be reviewing it later on my channel, as well as with Brad Jones when we can get together and do the review, hopefully in the next week or so. All I have to say is this, because I don't want to spoil anything for the review. I will say the movie was good. After hearing some of the original quote-unquote magic players talk about the original show, I think Frank Oz has a point. I think Disney really needs to listen to those before him to really see how the magic happened and how they can make the magic happen again. So now what I want to talk about, since, like I said, last week I had a lot of fun doing Storytime with Geno. I want to do another Storytime with Geno today. I want to talk about my first Comic-Con. I went to my first Comic-Con on August 9th through the 12th, 2007, which was a Thursday through Sunday, and it was Wizard World Chicago. And I'm going to kind of do a bit of a day-by-day, kind of rundown of my days there. I went for the whole weekend. So on Thursday, I decided to get the lay of the land. There's not a lot going on during the preview night. A lot of shopping going on because a lot of the shops are open. There's not a ton of guests there. But I learned real quick that Comic-Con was going to be expensive. First, I met comic book artist Arthur Sudum, who's big time known for the Marvel Zombies comics, definitely the cover art. I had him sign my Marvel Zombies #1. He's a nice guy, but he was the it thing at the time in comics, so I had to wait a while to meet him. Also on Thursday, I met my first Comic-Con celebrity in Lou Ferrigno. I learned pretty quickly that Comic-Con was definitely going to be expensive, as I said before. A Polaroid and an autograph from him sent me back something like $60 total with a combo deal. You couldn't even take a picture with your own camera. I have a crappy Polaroid of him. Now later he kind of loosened his stance on that, but and I got another better picture with him at a later Comic-Con. I also learned that over the years that Mr. Ferrigno can be moody. He wasn't the happiest camper that day, but off and on throughout the years, his moods have gone up and down like a freaking yo-yo. And I mean that. The first time I met him, kind of not in a good mood. Second time I met him, amazing. Third time I met him, which was the time I interviewed him, he was kind of moody that day and got a little confrontational with me during the interview. Kind of called me a liar. Because I know that the voice for the Hulk in the Avengers movie and everything was a mixture of Lou Ferrigno and a few other voices. And he said it was all him, and it's not all him. So anyway, so that was fun. Then I talked to him the next year, thanked him for the interview from the year before, and he was cool. So it was weird. So that was about all for Thursday. Just kind of, there's just there for a few hours. With all the stuff I bought, you wouldn't know I was just there a few hours. But anyway, Friday, I met wrestling superstar Virgil, and saw the makings of the meme that took the world by storm. He charged me $30 to $40 for his autograph. The $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase was supposed to be there, but didn't make it or couldn't make it. I learned years later and confirmed a theory of mine that Virgil would tell events that DiBiase would be there too. Quote unquote, forget to tell Ted DiBiase about the event and then be the only one to show up. Friday, I also met Fat Mama from Stan Lee's Who Wants to Be a Superhero TV show. She's a really nice lady. I love that show. It was a lot of fun. I mean, it was silly, but I love that show, and she was cool. I have a story about her, but it takes place on Saturday, so I'll get back to that. I know I went to some panels and things that day, but I really can't remember which ones. I just tried a lot of different things. The big thing on Friday, though, was I, quote-unquote, discovered Giordano's Deep Dish Pizza via hotel delivery that night. And I've been in love with that pizza ever since. Saturday, I discovered, at that time anyway, that VIP tickets was the way to go. When the tickets early event helped me get in line for the secret Dark Knight panel later at night. The Dark Knight was filming in Chicago at that time. Comment about VIP tickets. They used to mean something. They would sell less of them, and you could get in and, a little earlier and get in line a little earlier, but now they sell way too many of them for way too many guests, and it's a mess. I'm fine with capitalism, but it's a freaking mess when, when you oversell VIP tickets for just about each and every guest that are coming to the con. Saturday, my wife at the time, on Friday, I called her and told her about meeting Fat Mama. And see, my wife at the time had just found out she was pregnant with my first son, Andy. So she suggested that I get another autograph from Fat Mama that was addressed to my mom, who was also a fan of the show. The autograph read something along the lines of, "Congrats, Grandma Carol," and it ended up being a pretty good idea. Saturday, also, I went to the big Marvel panel, which is where I gained my distaste of Joe Quesada being the head of the company at the time. He announced big changes coming to the Spider-Man books, which is what led to the One More Day storyline. The books where Peter Parker sold his soul to Satan, Mephisto, to save Aunt May's life, which is a series that made me quit collecting comics for good. I remember when I read that fourth comic, the last comic of the series, I was sick at the time and in bed. I read it. I said something along the lines of, this was BS, and I chucked the comic across the room because I was not in the mood. Also at Saturday, after the Marvel panel, I really had to go to the bathroom. But I got in line to have some comics and a poster signed by Quesada first. I was a fan of his art, even though I, at the time, wasn't a fan of him running the company. He's still a really good artist, so I figured I'd go to the bathroom after that, but this was not the case. After getting through Quesada's line, the late artist Michael Turner's line was filling up fast, so I had to get in that line. So then no bathroom break. No bathroom break there, because after that, the line for John Cassaday's line started to fill up. So again, no bathroom break. And he was late. About an hour late. So then, after getting through that line, I finally got to go to the bathroom, thankfully. After that, I was walking around and I saw that Bobby Heenan, Bobby the Brain, who just passed away recently, was at his table, and he was one of the big ones that I was wanting to meet. And apparently he had troubles with his flight and everything. He was only there for a few hours, and I caught him like at the tail end after sitting through all these lines and having to go to the bathroom. I finally caught him, and it looked like they were starting to shut down his table, but I caught him right at the end. And I caught him at a really good time because there was nobody there. It was him and two handlers, and there was nobody came to that table while I was around there. So I got to talk to a legend in the wrestling business for probably about 15-20 minutes. I mean, when I compare it to the time I got to meet Jimmy Hart when he came to our TV station that I work at, and you know, when you get to shoot the shit with someone you've admired for so many years, uninterrupted, you know, it's just amazing. I got to talk to him about, you know, who he liked and didn't like working with in the business. He said he loved Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect, because he was a constant professional, but he liked to have fun too. Said he really didn't like Rick Rude because he was all about Rick Rude. And then I asked him to talk to me about an Andre story because I'm a huge Andre the Giant fan. And he managed him for a time. And he talked about a time when they were on an airplane. And since Andre was so big, he hated airline seats because it didn't even matter if it was a good airline seat. He still had trouble. And so he, the flight attendant came up to him and asked him, can I get you anything? And Andre was a big drinker, as legendarily known. And he said, I'd like a screwdriver, you know? So anyway, they saw him messing with the seat. So what do? They don't bring him the tasty beverage of a little bit of vodka and orange juice. No. They bring him a screwdriver because they think he wants to mess with the seat, and he's Andre, and Andre gets what he asked for, right? And Bobby Heenan, it was just like, you know, he made a joke about don't bring an agitated man tools, you know? So getting to talk to him was great. And what was funny was we got down to business, right? After talking for a while, we got to get down to business. And by the way, I'm so glad I got to talk to Heenan this time. He had one bout with cancer. And you could tell he had some surgeries and stuff, but he could still talk really well and everything. A little slurred in his speech, but he could talk really well. Still pretty well. And the next time I had met him was a few years later, and it's where he could barely talk. And then it got to a point where he couldn't talk. So I was glad I got to meet him a couple times where I could the first time where I could really talk to him, and the second time where I could still understand him. So anyway, I pull out my picture, and I had found a picture on eBay of him and Andre, and I was just like, I want this signed, right? And I bought it because I knew I was meeting him, and that it was the best picture I could find, and I couldn't find any other pictures of him and Andre. And it would turn out that must have been a thing, because he saw that and he looked at me and he goes, "Where did you get this?" And I said, "I found it on eBay, you know." And he goes, "I don't have a lot of pictures of me and Andre." And I said, you know, deep down part of me wish now I would have just said, "Well, it's yours, sir." But, you know, smart ass me, you know, I wasn't being mean or anything, but I was just like, "Well, I'll tell you what." I said, "You give me 2 of your autographs and I will give this picture to you." And he goes, "I can't do that." He goes, it's, you know, the handler's business, not mine. And his handler goes, "No, it's cool." So I got 2 autographs from Bobby Heenan for having a picture of him and Andre, giving him that. Like I said, I kind of wish I would have gave it to him, but it wasn't like he was just like, too disappointed or anything. He's just like, "Oh, wow, I can't believe you have this picture," Funny thing is, later I found the picture again on eBay, and then when I met him the second time, I had him sign it. So I ended up with the picture I wanted signed later anyway. But yeah, he signed an old AWA picture, and I can't remember what the second one was. But yeah, it was a Heenan family picture. It was like kind of like a collage that someone had photoshopped for him. But then I have my picture with him and everything. Still one of my favorites that I met, because again, he's just he's the man when it comes to managers and wrestling for me. He's always been entertaining, always been smart. He knew the business inside and out, and meeting him was meeting a true legend for me. So you think Saturday's done? Well, Saturday's not over yet. After getting done with Bobby Heenan, I had just a little bit of time. I had to run back to my car that was in the parking garage and drop off all my stuff, and especially my cell phone, because they weren't allowing any electronics in this room for this secret Dark Knight panel. They were barely letting people take watches in the room. That's how paranoid they were. And it kind of told me I was getting into something special, and it was for a good reason. They didn't want anyone to have any type of cameras or anything in there. So on Saturday night, after hours of the show, was the Dark Knight panel. And I have to say that it was and still is one of the coolest things that I've ever got to do or see at a Comic-Con. We get sat down finally. The line was huge, and I was even there early, and the line was huge. So we all get sat down. There's 2 big screens in the room, and the host starts introducing the guests of the evening. First come out, screenwriter of The Dark Knight, David Goyer. The next to come out, the other screenwriter of The Dark Knight, Jonathan Nolan. The next guest, director Christopher Nolan. That got the crowd pretty into it. Then they announce 3 other guests. First, Gary freaking Oldman comes out, and he plays with the crowd, and he probably got the biggest pop of the night. Next, the future Two-Face for The Dark Knight, Aaron Eckhart, comes out. And then, lastly, Christian Bale came out. And no Heath Ledger. And I think a lot of people were disappointed in that. But then again, we got to see Gary freaking Oldman. They shouldn't have complained too much. Long story short, they all talked about the filming of the movie, their time in Chicago, and about Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker, which, sans spoilers anyway, they didn't really talk about anything detailed about the movie, but they talked about his dedication to the role and everything. And I have to say this, the best part of the evening, though, is when they said, by the way, we have a sizzle reel of The Dark Knight to show. And of course, the crowd just went, just batshit crazy, no pun intended. Because this was the first ever released footage of The Dark Knight. Of course, we had seen Batman Begins, and I think they had released one image of Batman in the new suit, because I had actually printed out a picture of it just in case. I had a feeling that they were going to do something for The Dark Knight, because I knew they were in Chicago. And being that they did nothing at San Diego Comic-Con for The Dark Knight, because they were filming The Dark Knight in Chicago, I had this feeling that something would happen. So I printed this picture just in case. Granted, jumping to the future a little bit, I didn't get any autographs on it, which was kind of sad. But I was at least prepared. So they showed this first released footage of the movie. No trailer had been released yet or anything. Like I said, just this one picture. And it's nothing's been seen, because when the stars of the movie are surprised that this footage is being shown, and they're excited to see it. You know it was going to be special. In the footage, we got the first ever look at the Joker, albeit a blurry view of one. They didn't want to spoil too much. It was before they did that magazine cover with him. I believe it was Entertainment Weekly that had the first picture of him. We also got to see somewhat the first look at Two-Face, though it was a partial look at the back of his scarred neck and a spinning coin superimposed over the footage. And someone says, "I thought you were dead," and he's just like, "half," and of course the fans went crazy. And then of course after it was over, everyone was chanting, "Show it again, show it again," kind of like to do for any trailer at a Comic-Con and stuff that you've seen and footage that shouldn't have gotten leaked, right? But you could kind of tell that Christopher Nolan was annoyed that he had to even show the footage the first time, because I got to finally see at least the impression I was getting of Christopher Nolan, that he was, I kind of got that he was a little full of himself, because he's just like, no, no, no. He wasn't being jokingly saying no. He looked pissed and was like, no, no, we're not showing it again. No, 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 no. And of course the fans were kind of upset about that. After the panel, I tried to go out back and snag some autographs, but wasn't able to get any. The only person I saw come out was Christopher Nolan, and there was like 3 of us there, trying to get autographs. It wasn't like there was like 70 people. So I was kind of hoping, since there was only like 3 of us, he might go, okay, but no, he just kind of looked our way and then kind of made a beeline in the opposite direction. So he wasn't having any of it. So that was my Saturday experience. I was pretty dead after Saturday. Sunday, not much really happened on the last day. I did some more shopping and found out, at least at the time, because times have changed at Comic-Con, that Sunday was the best day to buy stuff back then, because dealers didn't want to have to drag all that crap back home. So that's the end of my first Comic-Con, and at least last year I didn't get to go to Chicago, but I'd been going ever since 2008, and I've at least tried to go to a Comic-Con, whether it be St. Louis or I've done Columbus. When it comes to Comic-Con, boy, was that a long drive for me, but that was my first Comic-Con. I've seen Comic-Cons get better and worse over the years since my first Comic-Con. Have they really been able to top my first one? No. But that being said, I've got to meet and do some cool things at different cons, whether it be interview people or whenever I became a critic and everything, because this is way before I was a critic. My second Comic-Con, I got to meet Todd McFarlane. Still the coolest looking autograph I've ever gotten, because the way he kind of draws it. I mean, it's like he's drawing a picture. He just takes that much time. It took me 5 or so hours in line to get to meet Todd McFarlane. That's another story for another day. But yeah, if you've never been to a Comic-Con, you should go, because there's memories to be made. And as you could tell, I mean, that was 4 mostly great days for me. That's going to be all for the big stories. Now on to quick hits. First, with all the controversy surrounding the supposedly bad test screenings of Deadpool 2, it has been revealed that the reshoots that were announced only took 6 days and include a secret cameo. While a few names like Hugh Jackman and Betty White come to mind, with Disney having just bought Fox, it could be anything. My official guess, Mickey Mouse. And no, I'm not kidding. I have the feeling that the ending to Deadpool is going to be him getting censored as a joke, and it's going to be a Mickey Mouse joke. It's going to be about Disney censoring them, even though Disney has said we're keeping it R. Next, principal photography is wrapped on Mission Impossible Fallout. So in hilarious fashion, Henry Cavill posted a video on Instagram saying goodbye to an old friend, his mustache. First, if you haven't watched this video, you should. It's freaking hilarious. Second, given that the whole Warner Brothers Paramount issue involving that very mustache, How ironic would it be if Mission Impossible Fallout had to do reshoots and needed to use a fake soup strainer during them? Speaking of Henry Cavill's mustache, Justice League is officially DC's lowest grossing movie theatrically in this new franchise. While it did make a little over $650 million worldwide, it cost over $300 million to make and reportedly around $100 million in advertising. Shia LaBeouf is about to play, get this, his own father in a story loosely based on his own life called Honey Boy, which was LaBeouf's childhood nickname. Manchester by the Sea breakout Lucas Hedges will be playing the Shia LaBeouf character of the movie. Does anyone else think that LaBeouf is just trying to that he's looking for a way to explain his actions of the last few years through his quote-unquote art? Did you know that you can now buy the Studio City home that was used as Quentin Tarantino's character's house in Pulp Fiction? It's said to be a well-maintained 1,700 square foot house and is being listed for $1.395 million. And no, it doesn't come with Jimmy's Gourmet Coffee or a sign for, a certain kind of storage. Steven Spielberg has teased the production start date for Indiana Jones 5, saying that he will start filming next spring. The movie is set to open on July 10th, 2020. Just to throw a couple of numbers out there, Harrison Ford will be 76 at the time of filming and 77 when the movie comes out. And yes, I am still okay with him playing the role. I've been seeing some stories popping up here and there about John Wick Chapter 3. And I don't want to read them because can I just have this movie already and maybe 2 or 3 more and the upcoming TV series right now, please? I can say that this will get me to subscribe, or I can't say this will get me to subscribe to YouTube Red because, F that. But have you seen the trailer for Cobra Kai? Holy crap, that show looks awesome. I'm sure I'll find some way to see it somehow. In other YouTube news, YouTube is looking to get into the movie making business, kind of like Amazon has done. They announced that principal photography has completed on the movie Vulture Club starring Susan Sarandon and Edie Falco. First, the movie will be released theatrically and then on YouTube Red. While I can't say I've seen the movies that have already been released on YouTube Red, I will say that I hope this one gets way better reviews than the ones that are already there. Alex Trebek threw a little shade at a returning champion for, in a way, insulting Big Bird as a child. On national television, he called her a little weird. After her jaw dropped in disbelief, he dropped his jaw and said, "Oh, give me the look. You disrespected Big Bird. You're lucky to be here." After the commercial break, Trebek joked, "Our champion, Lisa Mueller, told me that when she leaves Jeopardy, she's going to write me a very long letter." Look, while I'm sure he did apologize during that commercial break, the fact that he'd just throw a contestant under the bus on Sesame Street proves that Trebek just don't give an F. The Grudge reboot, which has already signed on John Cho and Damien Bashir to act in it, has signed on Lin Shaye to co-star, which helps Shaye continue her mission to be in every horror franchise ever. And lastly, Pacific Rim Uprising director Stephen McKnight has stated that he would be interested in directing a DC movie. In other news, Pacific Rim Uprising director Stephen McKnight is the latest to come out in support of the release of the Zack Snyder cut of the Justice League. In other news, Pacific Rim Uprising director Stephen McKnight will probably never get to make a DC movie ever. That's going to be all for Quick Hits. I wanted to give you guys another channel update. The quest for 4,000 hours continues. I'm about 300 hours away from quote-unquote reevaluation. Again, I've suspended production on Netflix and Chance, The Punisher retrospective, and critical reviews for now. I just want to do some different things. I'm still having a blast doing Geno's Bad at Games. I just finished up Max Payne 3. I pretty much know what my next few games are going to be. I've bought a few. I've had some on my computer for a while I want to play. Some are based on movies, some are not. And don't worry, as usual, as I say, I'm not becoming a gaming channel, but I am just trying to have a little fun mixing things up a bit. Another thing when it comes to the YouTube channel, I'm trying not to worry about the quote unquote making it thing too much anymore. I've realized that worrying just takes the fun out of it for me. I have trouble concentrating. I have trouble writing scripts. I have trouble coming up with stuff for this program when I'm worried about things. And I just want to have a good time. I'm never going to make a living off of this. And even if I do make enough to make a living, I'm not going to change anything. I'm not going to do this full time. It's mostly for fun for me. And if I make money on it, I make money on it. Great. So, I hope you guys just come to the channel and have fun with me. I'm trying to have a good time. I want you guys to have a good time. I want it all to be about having a good time. So, come have a good time with me on the channel. If you're listening to this on the podcast version, the Reel Geno, ReelGeno on YouTube, come subscribe, watch my stuff. Let's just have a good time together, because that's what I want it to be about. Lastly, I want to draw your attention to a few things. First is the Geek Be Cubed YouTube channel, which is where me and my partner in crime, Heisenerd, do a bi-weekly podcast. The GB3 podcast. We talk about all things geek, video games, movies, tech, whatever we feel like talking about. We've been talking about Toys R Us a lot. I'm sure that'll probably come up. I know the nerd is coming up with he's coming up with an idea for a game, and I don't want to spoil anything about it. It was his idea, and if he wants to talk about it on his channel, he can. But I think it'll be kind of fun. He gave me the idea, and I was like, yeah, let's do that. So I think we're going to be doing the game. If not on the next podcast, it'll be the one after that. And also, I want to direct you to Heisenerd's channel. It's Heisenerd, Heisenerd. He does gaming live streams and Let's Plays. He also does a weekly podcast called Heisenerd Speaks. And then lastly, I want to draw your attention to the DNA Digital Network. Now, not only you'll be able to find all three podcasts, which is my podcast, Get on the Mic, the GB3 podcast, and Heisenerd Speaks on YouTube, but now you'll be able to find them on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and other places podcasts are available. Now you can listen to all these programs on your favorite audio device. For more details on all that and on the DNA Digital Network's programs, go to dnadigitalnetwork.com. As usual, I want to thank you guys for the support. Thank you guys for the love. I try and want to keep my channel as nice and just try to keep it as civil as possible. Just try to have fun. I've noticed some stuff on YouTube lately where it's basically, the bigger a channel gets, the more problems it has with people just wanting to bring it down. And I'm not saying I don't want my channel to grow, because I do, because I want people to enjoy my stuff and I want people to have fun with my stuff and talk about it. But, if it doesn't get big and it stays cool, then I'm okay with that, because I just want to have a good time. If it gets bigger, I want to, hopefully it stays cool. I haven't had to deal too much with trolls. There's been a few times, but I don't want to see the channel become a place for problems. You know what I mean? I don't want to have to ban people. I want people to have a good time. And, if my channel starts having stuff like that, I'll have to deal with it. And like I said, I've had a few instances, but, I've made a comment and, because I've had people, say, well, my reviews, you feel about this way and because of this, and that. And I'm like, did you even watch the review? And then we talk about it. And I had one person who's just like, oh, I thought you were saying this because of something else. Now I understand, I like to think that, if we're having a good time talking, great. If someone has an issue, let's talk it out. I don't want to be mean. Even in my reviews, when I throw a little shade towards something, it's never personal. Okay, sometimes it is when Michael Bay's involved, but because we all have our issues with something, right? But I want my channel to be a place for fun, because I know YouTube has become a place that isn't always fun. If you have tuned in to any and I won't say sometimes these aren't entertaining, but if you tuned into something like when they call them, death matches, there's, what is it? There's the the Morning Kumite and something Worski. I don't really listen to them big time, but I've listened to some of them whenever they're talking about a subject that I am interested in. There's like Mr. Medicare and guys like that, and I found some of his stuff, especially his look at Channel Awesome, to be interesting. He talked about some of the different personalities on that channel. I was happy. I was afraid he was going to talk crap about Brad Jones, but he was just like, I bet you're wanting me to talk about Brad Jones. Well, I kind of like his stuff, and he didn't really say anything bad about Brad Jones. So I was happy to hear that because Brad's a good friend of mine. But I see this stuff happen on channels. I see channels doing stupid stuff, and I see channels getting hits for the dumbest reasons. And I wonder why people even watch certain things. And granted, to each his own. I mean, you want to watch something dumb on YouTube, heck, half my stuff's dumb, and if people enjoy it, I'm happy, but, watching me try to play through, a video game is pretty dumb, so, but that's just it. That being said, I want my channel to be a place where people can come have fun and have a good time and not have to put up with stupid crap, because I don't want my channel to become a personal attack place like some channels are. And I appreciate those that respect my channel. And people, if you throw jokes and stuff that aren't too mean-spirited, I'm not, somebody made a comment, about me looking way bigger than Brad on our video that we did together, talking about cons, and said something. He called me like the Punisher of cheeseburgers because I was wearing my Punisher shirt. And yes, I am a fat dude, but and I kind of found it funny, and I was just like, there it is. There's that fat joke, and I'm just trying to take it with stride. I am who I am. And, I'm always afraid to open myself up too much on YouTube. Now, granted, I'm a pretty open book about myself. I do bring up my kids and stuff every now and then, but I don't want to get too personal with my kids because I'm afraid someone's going to insult them and it's going to lead me down a path I don't want to go down. That's why I just kind of I try to keep my stuff as clean as possible. And I know I curse every now and then, and, I say I say the occasional racy things, or I play through the Max Payne game, which is bloody. And then there's that one part of the scene where it's in a strip club. My channel's not going to be perfect, but I want my channel to mostly be a place where people can come and have a good time and be cool and just talk about whatever it is we're talking about. And I know I've said this stuff before, but, just seeing where YouTube is going and afraid of where it's going, I just want to talk about how I want to make my channel what I think YouTube should be, which is a place for everybody to be cool with each other. And I'm not saying you can't have differences of opinion or anything. That's not what I'm talking about. Because I love having fun debates about movies and stuff. But when it comes to people having, when people are bringing up stupid crap just to bring up stupid crap, that just gets old to me. Spirited debates are fine. But personal attacks are bullshit. And I just don't want to see that stuff on my channel, because I just want everyone to have a good time. There's a movie called Sneakers, and if you haven't seen that movie, it is a movie of the times because of technology and everything. But if you haven't seen it, it's got a great cast. Got Dan Aykroyd, Robert Redford, Ben Kingsley, River Phoenix, just to name a few that are in this movie. I mean, just about everyone in this movie from something, right? It's got Sidney Poitier in it, and he's fantastic in it. And it's got some serious moments here and there, but it's mainly just a fun movie. And there's a character in the movie named Whistler. He's blind, and they're talking at a Christmas party about what do you want for Christmas, and it plays into later in the movie. But people are saying I would like this, that, and he goes, I want peace on earth, goodwill toward men. And that line in that movie always stuck with me. That, in this movie it has a big thing about technology and information and everything being out there, which is why I think it stuck with me, because it almost kind of talked about the future, and really the message of the movie kind of, is here today, even though the technology isn't, because man, the computers in that movie are old. But he said he wants peace on earth, goodwill toward men. And I've always seen YouTube as a community, and I know a lot of people see it as a place where they can attack people and be dicks to people, but I don't want my channel to be about that. I want my channel to be cool. And those of you that have kept it that way and have been with me for this time and kept it that way, I got nothing but love for you. And I know I've said this many a times, but you got all the respect in the world from me. That's going to be all for Get on the Mic this week. Lo and behold, this is the 20th show. I can't believe I've done 20 of these. When I started doing it, I didn't expect it to, I didn't really expect it to do anything. I just wanted to do it. And the fact that I've done 20 shows and I'm still having fun doing it. And those of you that listen to it, I appreciate you guys for that too. And I just ask that you keep on tuning in. That's going to be all for Get on the Mic this week. Until next time, I'm the Reel Geno Reynolds. Peace.